Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, and now it's on full screen. You can see it. Where are we? Where are we going in this field of business? For me, this question arose to me also in an artistic place. Where is the evolution of humanity? You could say. I saw this in Beirut in 2016, and it kind of sparked my thinking. Where are we going? Especially when it comes to business. And I have a little gift for those of you who stay to the end. It's a little small thing just to expand your consciousness a little bit, but you'll see if you stay through to the end. So who am I? Thank you for the introduction, Patricia. I'm this social entrepreneur that actually just started a community for other social entrepreneurs that called company Culture Co-Creators, where we kind of empower their cultures basically, but more of that later. I'm this cultural analyst and ethnographer, and ethnographer means Greek, means peoples in Greeks. So basically what I do is that I study people and cultures. And I study these things as like these everyday little things, like our small habits, our how we use our body language, how we decorate our home spaces, our offices, all these small things and symbols. So I'm going in deep into what you can call thick data, and that's why I'm kind of, and what I do. And I'm as a social scientist, you are the instrument for research. So I use my own body to observe and to listen and to question, and not just the other person, but also myself, my thoughts. When you write something down about another person's behavior, also reflects. You also need to be self-aware about your own thoughts, about how you position yourself and how you kind of make judgments. And you will be very wise on yourself by doing that for a long time. And then basically what I do is analyze and co-create whatever it can be. And there I kind of do the handover to architects like you, kind of the designers, to people who go through this process. I will show them in a minute. But to me, everything matters and everything is data. So that means that, like you also know as creative people, it means that if I have real flowers or plastic flowers in my office, it means something. Every little input, every little smell, even it makes a difference of the experience, how you experience and how you're feeling as a well-being as a human being. So what are we doing here? This is actually also a story about an architect I know. This is Rasmus, the guy here with the glasses, beautiful guy. He's also like the first social entrepreneur I met. He's a founder of a startup, now perhaps scale up, called Archilab in Copenhagen. And they use this user involvement and co-creational process to create urban designs. And here is for a young youth club, where these marginalized young people, they were allowed to dream, to get their voice heard, to get involved, basically, right? If that makes sense. So our client was the municipality of Copenhagen, and our goal was to manifest these young people's dreams, their desires into designs through this process of user involvement and engagement and co-creation, because we have to engage them, we have to listen, we have to get them to us and to tell us what they needed, right? And we have to be creative about that process. So my areas of responsibility were in the knowledge and experience section here, and where Rasmus is more the creative kind of, he puts the dots together. I collect the knowledge, I make an analysis, and then the architect make the creation. But first we need to have some data. We need to know what they wanted. What do they want for this park? So we asked them, how do you envision this future park? space of this public park that comes to your neighborhood soon. And one method we did was this thing that I interviewed them, as you can see, perhaps me here to the left side, laughing. I interviewed them, and while Rasmus he drew what kind of bench do you want? What kind of outdoor furniture do you want? How big should it be? What colors should it be? So we got all this data, this information of design parameters, so we know how to design it exactly what they wanted. So this was just very nice user involvement, and you got so much data on your customer, right? If it was like your business. So we also mapped their everyday life, their challenges, their parameters for social life. If you have more social life, how do we create it? What's the parameters for success for creating that? And we also, where was it scary for them? Where was there's not enough lighting, so they can feel safe? So those things were also outmapped in this through those methods. And the result was this. I think a beautiful bench. So Rasmus and I created it pretty much ourselves. And those children who wasn't involved in the interview process, because some of the boys especially wasn't keen on getting interviewed and getting pictures of their faces, because they were kind of they were seen as potential gang members, or like some in kind of a marginalized neighborhood, you know, right? But it was still amazing to see when we built that bench and we should kind of lift it up. They kind of they joined in. They kind of beat the strong guys, and they helped us. So in that way, they were also included in the design process. And here's some other guys, some younger guys who were allowed to take their photos, and it's so great to see the actual social benefits of like a co-creative design here, I think, for me at least. And what we did also when we presented the menu was like included the process. What kind of they were put in these situations, interview situations in teams, right? Where we kind of imagine, okay, what do you want for your future? And we draw it out, and we kind of, okay, what do you want? And as I said, like get this very thick data on their wants and needs, and also recorded it, right? So it was kind of, if we didn't listen the first time, we could hear it again and again and again, and then kind of really wise on who they are and what the desires are, right? But unfortunately, all of them wanted a football field. And since there was a collaboration with the municipality, like to me, the politics got in the way. So they didn't get the football field. So I had to kind of find my purpose in life, where I didn't want find my situation like that. And again, that we produce all this kind of data and we don't apply it because there is this middleman or politics or some way. So I need to find a way that I could make better impact and make like quick, just like have a great vision, but still implement it fast, right? So I had to choose the business life, and I had to choose a specific kind of road in business, right? And this I have framed as socially and environmentally conscious business. You can frame it whatever you want, but it depends on what kind of values you have, what kind of vision you have for your business. And those kind of businesses I want to I want to work with, kind of. So the first one I reached out to was this amazing guy I want you to meet, is called Mikkel. He's a founder of Untitled Consulting that delivers these fast and highly affordable innovation consulting teams. And he's also university students, and the people on his team are also university students. So the benefit is that they can hire a team very cheap, but because they don't have the degree yet, but perhaps for some of them, a few months, a year or something, they will have the degree, but they're still really skilled, but you can pay them less, kind of. So he kind of and you get an amazing experience as a student, right? You kind of, instead of you working, not, no offense of working at McDonald's, but, or something kind of, but here you can actually work with something that you love. If you love user experience design, okay, you can get on his team and get some experience of working with for another company, developing something on a project with some other amazing passionate students, right? And Mikkel is highly ambitious and highly empathic. He wanted to be the biggest consultancy in Denmark in the 5 years. So that's why I wanted to work with him, because he is a lot of fun and ambitious still, and wanted to get to work. And I simply love that. And but still, we were also in the first wave of Corona restrictions here in Copenhagen. So there was this fear of unknownness. And especially if you watch the news, that can influence you quite a bit. So, and that's where I kind of have an underdog advantage, you can say. I don't watch the news. I read philosophy, and I do personal development, and I reading science books and stuff like that. And I found out that Mikkel is also had this shared passion for philosophy and personal development and leadership also. And he shared with me this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it kind of came into our collective consciousness, and I've kind of adopted this mindset, because I used to have this mindset that I used to work for money. But actually, like, I work for what I'm passionate about now, and then money is something that works for me. And that's that's a great mindset, because then you're not a slave to money. It frees you. It's a great book. You should definitely write. I could recommend it. Another book that is very good that I recommended to Mikkel is called 11 Rings. And why is this important? Well, just of this small conversation, 11 Rings. I shared this with Mikkel, and I called this. It's in conventional terms, it would be classified as accidental information exchange. That is the reason why trading floors for stockbrokers still is present, or they can do all the work online, but there's still some amazing value in this concept of accidental information exchange. Although I was conscious about his needs, and he was building a manifest. So I shared with him this concept of beginner's mind, of having an open mind to everything you do. I think this guy called Suzuki, Japanese or Vietnamese philosopher, religious kind of, I can't remember. But that came into my consciousness. I shared this with Mikkel, and it got into his consciousness. And eventually this became a value for Unisto. And this is the way he built also his philosophy on 3 values. And the first is the beginner's mind value, and it fits so aligned with their values proposition, or values aligned proposition, because their values are aligned with what they sell. They kind of sell this unexperienced team, innovation team. So they're kind of beginners, but that could be their advantage. So you kind of have a value that kind of pushes you to the underdog advantage. So that was highly valuable to Mikkel's business, and this is what he said about me. And Søren helped me rediscover the importance of having shared values with clients. That's also important. You have to know yourself before you can kind of know others, right? So you have to, who am I? What is important to me? And then you can find the customers you want to serve, right? But it kind of starts internal, I think. And how the last part of this testimonial, and how essential deep and sound philosophy is for business as such. So having this philosophy is kind of important to him as a business owner, because that's the foundation of his business. What is valuable? What is his values? What is his ethics? All these things. Sorry. So this is about consciousness also, right? So I don't feed my mind no more with no negative news, no TV. And this is important because I feed my mind with some other things, like like I said, podcasts and also nature sounds. That's where I'm into lately. I can highly recommend it. Nature has the perfect vibrations. So what this brought to my life as a human being, also in terms of my work, is got me less fearful, more present, and eventually more productive. And I perhaps this seems kind of, oh, look at me, I'm doing all these great things, but it's really just, it's healthy habits, right? It's kind of, if you heard it before, you kind of I just tell it again because this is the way to improve your consciousness through meditations, through kind of holistic health, taking care of your body, do yoga, do exercise, right? So this is just important and cliche, perhaps. 4 months later, I would share you with a more important story, actually. This is Mikkel again on LinkedIn, and I will share with you what he wrote here on this post. Meet my youngest but most important mentor. Her name is Alma, and she's my daughter. This post is probably the most difficult I have made because I made a big mistake, and I hope that my learning can inspire others to reflect upon what is most important in life. I withdrew from my family when Alma came to the world. A few months before the birth, I started Unisto. I was on a clear mission to unfold the great potential I saw in Danish youth. I was working a lot, and when I came home, I worked even more. Everything seemed to went fine, but the ball dropped. To stand with a newborn baby and a distant father wasn't sustainable. Therefore, I started to take great responsibility at home and use more time with Elmer. And that's the greatest thing I have done ever. Today, we laugh more, and she always lights up when she sees me. It is amazing. So Mikkel is also father to Elmer. So that means he's a human being. So kind of seeing this perspective as children, as mentors, as teachers, as leaders. And what do children do? This is kind of the pattern we're getting into here, and what I also do. The mirror. And what did Alma mirror to Mikkel? Not sustainable. That's his message. That's his own interpretation, right? And then on LinkedIn, I saw this guy. I was connected with this guy. He worked with CEOs and founders. Peter, very amazing guy also. He wrote this blog post. It was about your child can be your greatest coach. It teaches you to be how time effective. Because if you want to time for yourself, you need to be effective. That you have when you have to. If some of you have kids, you have to cut their nails, and yeah, I don't even get started about parenting. I'm not sorry. So, why I connected these two? I connected these two because they have the same perspective of child as a leader, right? So I connected these two, and perhaps they can help each other, and they could very much in terms of support holistically. Peter writes, many founders, CEOs ends up where you were, Mikkel, by focusing on what really matters to them, often their families. They become better CEOs, better leaders. So that's quite interesting, right? So, and Mikkel writes, thank you very much, Søren. Actually, you have been a source of inspiration to me as I found out how good you are at making the relationship to kids a priority. So, yes, we are all human beings, and we are all whole human beings. When I put my family first and not my business first, I don't go stress out the door. I go out with confidence. I go out with love. I feel as a better human being. Excuse me. And that improves my performance, I believe. And this is my family, and they're just great to see them also. And that's also a part of who I am as a whole human being. So how do we prioritize with all this, these stories? Where are we now in business? These bottom lines here in circles. That's very beautiful, I think. But at one time in history, it was only profit that matters, right? It was one bottom line, and that was it, right? But still, 85% of the world's human populations are unhappy in their jobs. Wow. We see the symptoms, we know them: stress, burnout, depressions, and this thing called screw you accounts. If you haven't heard about it, it's kind of having it projected against your boss, because if you don't like your boss, you can always have this account where you can say, screw you, boss, and then say, I have money on this account so I can withdraw back or something. And then lately we have seen this whistleblower legislation in the EU, and perhaps, I don't know, in Mexico or in the US, or I know probably also. So this protection of the employee, how do we protect the employee with this, in these old departments of HR now, people in culture departments, but this silo way of thinking, what to do as leaders? Well, this is a model I have inspired by integral approach. Is like a universal approach to kind of take all kind of management theories and kind of put them into a framework. It's a kind of integral theory. It's kind of, it says it all, kind of take it all, and then they kind of value each square equally, right? So they say historically we can either cater to lead to the psychological needs, we can lead with attention to individual behavior, we can lead with attention to the company culture, or we can lead attention to the system or systems. So it's also a matter how we frame it, right? It's paramount leadership skills you need to have, to have the power framing. But and you also need to ask yourself these questions: what has value as a business owner, or even as a human being, and how do we nurture that we have given value? And what is most valuable, most impactful? And here we come back to, okay, if we accept the premise that we have these 4 approaches to solve a problem, or to look through a perspective, then what is most impactful? What do you think? Is it A, B, C, or S? Kind of, sorry, culture. As you know, I'm a culture guy, and it's also, the number speaks for itself. An effective culture accounted up for 50% in differentiating operating profits between 2 organizations in the same business. Culture, we came from culture, right? What has most impact? Culture. At least some of the data suggests that. And today, 30% of the global workforce are made up by millennials who aspire to work in a culture where they see this good culture fit. Have you heard about this phenomenon? So do you kind of aspire to work in a good culture fit? And what is a good culture fit? Well, I will show this model, also developed by Integral Theory, inspired by them, because they make great models of the same kind of thing I work with, kind of. So great models. Thank you for that. And this also kind of evolution of leadership, evolution of care, evolution of whatever. It's kind of what kind of consciousness you can embody, kind of going from the egocentric to the ethnocentric to the world-centric to the cosmocentric. And the problem is with the culture fit is that it's the tribalism, basically. I care for my group. And then it's kind of, when you kind of, as you could also see in the picture, you say it's all white men, right? And that's exactly the problem here. And the white men hiring white men, and that's the problem, right? And how do we go beyond that? And why should we go beyond that? And from a business perspective, I would say just it's an innovation limit. As basically, if you look at nature, nature is abundant because it's so diverse. It has evolved through that way. There's no way about it. When we mix species, it produces these amazing thing from truffles to grass to whatever. Is nature is abundant and it will continue to produce species, and species has been been extinguished and all that. But and also because it's the right thing to do to grow as a human being. And but culture in itself is also trending. And recently, a great article in Harvard's Business Review, changing company culture requires a movement, not a mandate. They also talked about framing here, where essential leadership skills, and shape your culture, shape your future. And that is very true. As we saw, culture has this amazing impact on your business. It's kind of, it's glue that binds us together, or it's kind of the water. To me, culture is like the water. It influences us. In English, I can express myself in a certain way, and you can perceive what you hear in a certain way. And in Spanish, you can say te amo or te quiero, or it will have two different meanings, right? You know that. And so kind of culture is embedded in us. We are restricted by it, but we're also gifted by it, right? So some things will have advantages to us, and some of us kind of more like an anger, right? So kind of, to me, culture influences our psychological needs, our individual behavior, our company culture, and the systems we create, our biases sometimes when we don't even know it. Like, create a system, and because you have a certain viewpoint that you're not conscious about, you can create a bias system, right? As a programmer. And then it will go on from there. So there's cultural biases, cultural assumptions, and also cultural competencies, or something unlocked potentials, and this context matters all the time, right? And the context changes all the time. So that's why culture is so complex. But how do we approach it when we're embedded in it? We cannot not be biased, but we cannot. We have to still to approach it, to look at it, right? But where's the vantage point? And here I like to use the analogy of a amphibian. And here is a turtle. If you like the crocodile, you can get a crocodile. But but the point is that you have to imagine yourself as being in culture and being away from culture, non-attached to it, right? You have to look at it from a distance to make an analysis, as my professor once said. Otherwise, you're attached in it, and then you cannot see clearly. It's like with awareness. There's the situation, right? So, and there's also this increasing demand for things, as this is a recent job post, for wholeness, authenticity, emotional awareness, and this entrepreneur guru, you might say, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, as probably some of you know of. He says self-awareness, patience, gratitude, and empathy are some of those things that are demand for, basically. And here is, I love this perspective. Culture is not out there. It's made up by every one of us. If one just changes culture, we must change ourselves. And I think, and this is Kate Northrup, also like a revolutionary, do less, basically, right? And do smarter. And she's really a role model, also a female in this time. I don't think it's a coincidence, right? To kind of manage our time and to be present when we are, and to have quality time, but not to stress ourselves for why. To get a burnout, and why this kind of negative circle, I believe I can see pretty clearly. So how to grow ourselves, and how to grow our cultural awareness. I met this 4-step process because I was kind of seeing the pattern in my own life, and I do this thing kind of now almost habitually, right? Because I have done it for so long. But this the simple way I can explain it. First, I kind of introspect. I observe my thoughts, my behaviors, my assumptions, my own cultural grouping. Okay, what do I observe as a 3-year-old child? Was that healthy or was that not healthy? And then challenge them in alignment with who I want to be as a father, as a man, as a human being. So asking me these questions in my notebook, writing them down, being an observer of my own thoughts. And then also, of course, also this is a dialectical process, right? But still, you start within, and then you go without. Then you gain outsider perspectives. You gain new inspiration, and you go new places, observe and listen, question people, culture, and nature. And then you whatever you do, you kind of make a co-creation of it. You make a design, you make a strategy, you do something, you make a decision, kind of. And then you see what worked, what didn't, and for who, and then you include people again. And this is kind of a wholeness circle to ensure that you become more and more whole. And it's kind of, or you can also say, feed your ego first, and then feed your tribe, and then you feel a bigger tribe, and then kind of expand your consciousness. This is also an integral model. This is my own, and this is kind of a cyclical. If you want to have a cyclical model, and this kind of more expansive. So what kind of consciousness do you want to embody? And here the answer to me is that I want to care for all. And this is also the future of business, I believe, because the people, planet, and profit is kind of one way of putting it, right? But there's a lot more to it, right? So you have to care for all. And you have to go even further to that. You have to, at least in my sense, you have to, how can I increase value? How can I increase care? How can I increase wholeness? Excuse me, for myself and for others, right? So this is a continuous process of love, really. So loving yourself, loving others, and seeing the good in people, and doing the good. So this is kind of the to kind of sum it up, really, and then it's kind of we going really. It's never just one-sided, right? But this is just to make it clear, to make it kind of what the analysis is pointing to, right, towards. We're going to from a dominating focus on numbers and KPIs to really kind of to see more quality focused and more culture as we saw it, right? And the more integrated, holistic, you can say. And the old mantra is kind of, if you have heard it, like in a kind of sales way, push kind of. And nobody likes to be pushed. I don't think so, even not the customers, right? So, and the future mantra is more allowance, include, and transcend. I believe I see in the culture when I analyze it, right? And then from this single bottom lineism, somebody has said that as a problem to our world, and therefore also including business, because business, the increasing importance of business, right? To kind of seeing all has value, and how can we increase value and care? Yeah, not just as we see has seen for our planet, maybe by say fight for our environment. And I don't know about fighting, but protect it and honor it. But yeah, and culture perceive as something static, as something my culture people say that, and I have like a more different approach, saying something that culture is something we co-create all the time, that is fluid, that is that we have a responsibility of it, and therefore we have to include our cultural awareness and include other diversities. And I think it's Disraeli, he's talked about accommodating a competing narrative, so not just listening to our own silos. Oh, excuse me. Silos, kind of, when you see kind of, you can kind of listen to yourself, right? So it's yeah. And then it's very simply put, but we're basically going from broken human beings to more whole, more conscious, more inclusive, more effective human beings. And going from the more fearful, mistrusting leadership, the tribal, as we saw it before, or the egoic leadership even, to more loving, caring, trusting leadership, more universal leadership, and where we saw with children as mirrors. And going from this thing called sympathetic, where kind of the leader says, I feel you, I know where you're coming from, and there's no unknown kind of, I know all there is to know, I know your story, to kind of being more empathic, as Gary Vee also crested, when you kind of listen more, and then how do you feel now? And there's always more to explore, because there's only now, right? And this now also changes to now, and then you will feel different, right? And then from the othering, the screw you accounts, I'll open my I love myself account today, instead of having a screw you account, and I'll encourage you to do the same, or call it a freedom account, or do something to kind of honor ourselves, and don't project our things on the leader. Don't blame it on the leader. Take responsibility if you're not satisfied in your job. I can say that with confidence, I feel. And then we're going from a more competitive, reactive mindset, free of change. We have this phenomenon called change management. And if you were looking at it as a child or as an alien, like, what isn't change the only constant thing in this world? That everything change. So that is where, like, people like me, anthropologists and cultural analysts, kind of question the assumptions about what do we call things, because this is one thing that might seem absurd, because change is kind of it's everything change, right? And also going from this tunnel vision to have this more lateral vision, to kind of step back. And also in the Western culture, we kind of dominate to kind of look very, very narrow, very focused sometimes, and don't look at the context around the picture. So they're bias also, right? And we go from like this, I think, from this customer-centric approach. The customer is very important, of course, in business. But as we saw, like, people plan the profit. Everything is important, right? I believe, and people plan and profit are definitely important concepts in the whole equation, right? But we can do better, I believe. Yeah. So, are you ready for your gift? This is a thing a mentor of mine, he did. It's called techno magic. It's very simple. It's just, again, to expand your consciousness. You just have to prime your consciousness with little things, like stop watching the news and do a training, or read a book, or do something instead, right? And techno magic, here it comes. What will love do now? Save this image on your phone. You can have a screensaver. You can choose not to. And you have just send an email to me, Technomagic, to SORENBJERRUM88@gmail.com, and then you will have you will affect your subconscious mind to think like that. And it's just a little present for you, and it has an effect. I can tell you that. Your conscious and subconscious mind cannot tell the difference, and it's good to prime yourself in a positive way. So this is my gift for you. And if you have questions or resources or anything I can help you with, please do reach out just to my email.